Fellhounds is on a 2-turn cooldown, you know, and he's an epic. I just am not a fan of Lordly Legionary at all. I think he's a trash champion. You can let me know if I'm wrong in the comments below, but I gotta be honest with you guys. I don't think he's even good to build up for Fire Knight, especially because his affinity. Magic Fire Knight 20, once you get there, you know, in the mid to the early end game, once you're able to complete Fire Knight 20, he's not even going to be always landing a critical hit, man, because he's magic versus force affinity. So Lordly Legionary is a trash champion. Again, I will take the shot at him. So I'm just not a fan of him at all. Let's talk about the last champion you guys get. Is Vizix the Unbowed. A lot of people are down on this champion. A lot of people are very disappointed. She's a ton of defense. 1476, very high on defense. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each has an 80% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter. That can be built up to 100. And fills this champion's turn meter equal to the amount the target loses. Damage is based off defense. This is a great A1, guys. On the A2, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance when invoked of placing a decreased speed for 2 turns, and a shield buff on this champion equal to 20% of their max HP for 2 turns. Again, damage is based off of defense with the decreased speed. Sinister Allies is not a bad ability. It's a good ability. Single combat, places a provoke debuff on the target for 1 turn, also places an ally protect on all allies except this champion for 2 turns, on a 3-turn cooldown. You know, ideally the provoke would be on an AoE, then she would be really strong and solid. It's only 1 target, which kind of sucks, or really sucks, but you do get ally protect, which is a great buff to have in this game, and it's on a 3-turn cooldown. So I think overall, I think that she is underrated. She's not one of the best legendaries in the game, but I actually think she's a solid champion, especially in Faction Crisp because of this aura. 37% defense in Faction Crisp. So I think that she's worth building if you have not cleared Dark Elves 21 inside Faction Crisp, or if you're struggling with progression anyway. So, you know, I differ from public opinion, I guess, on that one. Let's see, anybody else here? We might come back to it. I'm just kind of going haphazardly all over the place here. Lizard Men, we have, the first dude we get is not Flinger, not Slasher, not Metal Sharper is actually a solid champion. Am I in rares here? Yes, I'm in rares. That's why I couldn't find my boy Jizzo. My bad. So Jizzo is a decent champion. He's one of the first guys that you get. His damage is based off defense. On his AT, shield buff for 3 turns and a counterattack for 2 turns on 1 ally. Then grants an extra turn, and the value of shield is proportional to his defense. That's not a bad ability, again, with the extra turn having more value in that skill. Attacks 1 enemy, has an 80% chance, 100% chance of placing a provoke for 2 turns, and a continuous heal buff on this champion for 2 turns. I think all said and done, Jizzo's not the worst champion in the world. However, I am not a huge fan. He has a really high base defense, or I shouldn't say really high, but he has a solid base defense at almost 1400, kind of the same as Silver Drakes. But still, man, he's no Silver Drakes, you know? He has an attack in all battles, which is okay to have, but I'm just not a huge fan of Jizzo, unless you're in the very early game, but I personally would not invest in him. Again, not trash, but I just don't think, I think you can get better options than him pretty quickly. So I wouldn't build Lordly, I wouldn't build Jizzo if I was going to go through the game again. Next one, might as well cover all kind of, not Zargallo. That'd be cool if we got Zargallo. It's actually Shaman. Shaman is another kind of one of those weird champions that, yeah, she's great in the early game. You have increased crit rate on all allies for 2 turns. You have Revive on the A3 on a 5-turn cooldown. It's nice to get a Reviver in this game, but eventually you're going to start unlocking them, you know? So, is it worth building her just to have a 5-turn Revival? I wouldn't. You know, if she had a defense in all battles or something by 23%, I would, or 20%, I probably would. But her aura is not that great. Her base stats are solid, her speed is solid. But personally, even though she's not trash, I mean, her ability to attack 1 enemy with increased crit rate on all allies, it's not awful on a 3-turn cooldown to have the increased crit rate, but still, not the greatest. She doesn't do much other than reviving, you know? So that's kind of the reason I would not advise. I would not personally build her out, even if I was free to play, because I really wanted to revive her, and I was just unlucky or something, and I never pulled her. So that is her. Let's talk about Undead Horde Dark Elaine. Dark Elaine, you guys know, I think she's viable up until the end game, right? So she is, what, our third or fourth champion that we talked about so far, maybe fifth, that is viable in the end game. Especially when we talk about Dark Elaine, she's really a specialist in my eyes for Ice Golem. You guys need to know that if you're struggling in Ice Golem, Dark Elaine is one of the best nukers, if not the best nuker out there, non-legendary. On the A2, Death Majesty hits very hard. Increase attack buff on this champion for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown that attacks all enemies. Also has a 75% chance of placing a decreased speed. Decreased speed is great. Hard-hitting ability, increase attack on herself. Very, very good ability. The reason, and she has decreased target max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted on the A1. Also a hard-hitting ability. Great multipliers on Dark Hell Pain. Fills this champion's turn meter by 25% and instantly activates for hard-hitting A2, Death's Majesty, whenever this champion or an ally receives a freeze debuff. Man, that's insane. You guys can read through the Veins of Ice too. She has this kind of unique, weird ability where she removes freeze and puts buffs on her instead. But man, every time an ally is frozen by the Ice Golem, boom, we go in there with Death's Majesty. You know, that's a hard-hitting ability and just one attack after another, after another, after another. She's a really good champion for Ice Golem. She's a good nuker everywhere else too, but especially Ice Golem. Dark Aethel is another login reward champion. I am not a fan of Dark Aethel. I know some of my viewers are, so again, this is an opinion-based video. I would not invest in her. She has a decreased speed on her A2 on a 4-turn cooldown, and on the A3, an AoE attack, an increased speed on this champion for 3 turns if the attack kills 4 or more enemies. Heals if it kills 6 or more enemies, extra turn if the attack kills 10 or more enemies. So she's meant to be kind of a spider specialist. I think there are way better options out there. She has an ally attack in all battles by 20%. Again, a lot of people disagree with me and like Dark Aethel in the mid game, basically when you unlock her. Me personally, I think that by the time you unlock her, you probably have better options, but I've just never been a huge fan of Dark Aethel. Again, I've seen her on some like sleeper lists, so, you know, my opinion. Alright, who haven't I talked about here? We have not talked about Tainix Hateflower. I think she's Demon. So Tainix Hateflower, I hated her in the beginning, you know, when she was released. I did a guide on her, and I don't think I crapped on her like, yeah, I think I did. I didn't like her, but she was pivotal for me to clear Demon Spawn without, at the time, having Duchess on my team. This was like my only heal that I had. Attacks 2 times at random, heals all allies by 3% of this champion's HP with 1 hit, or excuse me, with each hit on targets under decreased speed. Dude, I hate the qualifier. 3% of this target's max HP on every hit would be amazing, but it's 2 times, so it's a 6% heal, right? Because with each hit, 6% heal each times 3. So that is valuable, and she has the decreased speed on all targets, even though it's only targeting 1. Make sure you're targeting, you know, not the Spirit Affinity champion. You're landing that debuff, and boom, decreased speed on all enemies. So really, really solid to have that for 2 turns if it's critical. So she's landing the decreased speed. She decreases the damage all allies receive by 5%, and she'll receive the damage instead, so it's nice to have that there as well. It's not an OP passive. Overall, she's like a C- champion in my opinion, but if you really need a healer, think Faction Wars, she's there for you. Tainix Hateflower. I actually, again, was pleasantly surprised with this champion. This is one of the new. Wow, he looks so cool, man. I haven't looked at him in my own game yet. Wow, he's one of the new Doom Tower champions. Anyway, let's not get too sidetracked here. Who haven't I talked about, guys? I have not talked about Grush. Grush the Mangler is a really good champion. He is viable. I guess Tainix is viable endgame, but very, very niche. Endgame Faction Wars. Grush is a viable in a lot of areas endgame. Another endgame viable champion who everybody eventually gets for free. He has a chance of landing the Leech debuff on all targets for 2 turns before attacking, on the target, excuse me, for 2 turns before attacking. Really solid. A defense-based champion who has a Leech, immediately viable for Clan Boss. Attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of placing a decreased attack and a decreased crit damage debuff for 2 turns. On the 4-turn cooldown, Bone Breaker Stomp ability is good. This is totally mitigating damage, or I shouldn't say totally. This is doing a really great job at mitigating damage. 30% crit damage, and cutting their attack in half. Really solid debuff to have. And then it gets better. Attacks all enemies, so it's an AoE attack, and places at 15%, which is a strong version of continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. Places an additional 7.5 continuous heal buff on all allies for 1 turn if at least 1 enemy is hit with a critical hit. So you're getting a strong and a weak version of continuous heal for 2 turns in 1 turn. That's a lot of healing on an AoE attack. Grush the Mangler is a really good champion, and then he has the defense and Fashion Crypts as well. So I think I've covered, no, I'm missing one. I am missing one, and it is a Skinwalker. So let me know if you like this video, by the way, guys. Covering basically everybody that you can get in this game for free, or my favorites, I should say. Yaga the Insatiable, dude. Poor Yaga. Everybody always forgets about Yaga, man. Some people love him, some people hate him. I am somewhere